This show furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyer Group.
Talk Radio 790 KABC, another episode of Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer. I'm Karl Gerber, a real attorney licensed in California and 3 other states, representing employees since 1993. So this is Memorial Day weekend, and I wanted to say congratulations to all of you that were lucky enough to have to work this weekend. You should be happy about that because somebody is willing to pay you and be your employer, and all you business owners who are spending a lot of time this weekend working like me, you should be happy that you have customers because in Los Angeles County there are 200,000 people right now who don't have a job. So almost everyone other than those students who are in school right now who are about to have a job or maybe own their own company has a job. Not an uncommon thing in this world to have a job or to own a company or to aspire to own a company. So I'm wondering why it is that in California, like many of our other states, we have a driver's test to learn how to drive. There's a written rule test, and then there's one behind the wheel. When we go into the workforce, we don't have any tests at all. We don't have any courses to prepare us to be employees, managers, business owners. So why are we being thrust into the California workplace without any knowledge of what the employment laws are? Is it better to not know any of these rules and get screwed as an employee, be the only one who isn't paid right, not entitled to a leave of absence when you really should be under the law? Is it better as a supervisor to fire somebody and screw up a leave? Maybe you'll get fired yourself. Is it better to be in a costly lawsuit as a business owner? Maybe get a judgment against you for $163,719.41. Have to pay the other side's legal fees, $400,000, and pay your own incompetent lawyer $791,041. I have some sincere doubt even that a full-time labor lawyer who's been around for maybe 5 years would know the ins and outs of all of the California labor laws. There are a lot of them, many of them. So one of the points of this show, which does air every Sunday from 7 to 8, and I don't know what else is on that's any better than this or funnier than this. We don't have the wonderful world of Disney anymore. You're going to listen to this show and you're getting entertainment. But here's the deal. We have 2 missions on this show. One is to teach you how to be an employee that knows your rights or be a business owner that doesn't screw something up and get sued by your employees, or the supervisor that ruins your career over something you could have learned about on this show. So one of our goals is to educate you about employment law. But the second thing is to entertain you. And that's where we come up with some of the most absurd, outlandish, over-the-top, funny examples of employment law. You're going to remember that. You're not going to remember if I sit here and I tell you, here's the element of assault. Element A, element B. So I'm going to bring this content to you, and it's going to be funny. After our show last week, which was a little bit weird, I got a lot of calls from guys that had been comics in New York and Los Angeles in the 70s, top ones. They worked for top ones. They were musicians with top comedians, and they thought the show was really funny. So this is going to be an opportunity to learn about employment law every week, 7 to 8, on Talk Radio, 790 KABC, but it's going to be good. And if you're going to get your bachelor's degree, hopefully, in employment law after 52 episodes of this, maybe, 104, maybe your master's degree. And you're not going to forget some of the stuff we talk about. You're not going to forget the robot last week who was sexually harassed by a dom. It was pretty funny. It was pretty outlandish. You're not going to forget the telephone sex operator in episode 3 who taught us about the standards of being an independent contractor on the new California test for independent contractors. So this is the real part of the show still, But we're going to soon enter the world of Karl Gerber, workplace lawyer, a place where the oddest folk test California labor laws and start interacting together in a world you can decide whether it's fictitious. Several days this week, I drove around Sun Valley, California, that is. I was looking for the ostrich farm with the cosplay actors that you might have heard about in the last episode that you can get on workplacelawyer.org or Karl Gerber, KABC. During this escapade where I was driving around Sun Valley, California, I was offered some stolen rims and a job hauling trash because, for real, I was driving my diesel Dodge Ram truck with a long bed. Right before lunch, I spotted a friendly giant on stilts by some low-slung white ranch fencing at a place called Happy Acres, Happy Ending Ranch. I was pretty sure I'd found the person Cindy D. claims referred her to Show 3 and referred her alias, Mistress Lubov Dominatrix, in Show 5, along with the robot that she sexually harassed. Remember this man from my first episode? He was the man who called me in 1994 asking for representation when he felt that his genital had been infringed. And surely because of his notoriety in the adult film world, everyone knew what it looked like. I learned this fine gent, who I never represented, and appeared to me more of an urban legend, was at his mink farm in the wine country when I met his friendly giant on stilts at his Sun Valley, California ostrich ranch. We played phone tag, his cosplay servants called my people, and he agreed to come onto the studio live tonight to clear up a few things. I also wanted to give him a labor law checkup. I thought this would be an excellent opportunity to go through a number of labor laws business owners need to know about. And I had concerns about his operations after we heard about the sexual harassment on last episode. So this fine gentleman's name is Rhemus Helms. By all means, this is a refined man sitting before me live in studio Memorial Day weekend. He has silverly long hair, longer in the back than the front, considerable wave on the sides. He has an incredible smile, great teeth. He's about 6'1", maybe 6'2", without the boots. He's got a navy duster coat, solely blood-red Western shirt, considerably unbuttoned, of course. Remember, this is a man who was a director and an actor in the adult entertainment business before he retired on his cosplay ranch. He's wearing Wrangler jeans, size 32. I am afraid to look in the front. He has cowboy boots. They're beige boots, soft suede, lots of fringes. He's resting them on the table, making some noise, I hear. He's got fringes on those boots, a topaz ring with a gold-carved five-pointed star where the jewel is supposed to be, and he's leaning back in that chair with those boots. I'm excited to meet this guy because it's been a long time since he allegedly called me in 1994. And last week we were told by his cosplay robot, he is the most important man in Sun Valley, California, not the ski resort. I'm ever so excited to hear what he has to say. So we're now going to talk to Rhemus Helms, who allegedly called me in 1994 with a non-employment case. He clearly needs an employment law checkup. So, Mr. Helms, I've heard a lot about you. It is truly a pleasure to finally meet you after all these years. Last week, one of your employees claimed that he didn't pay taxes because he was a robot on your ostrich farm. He also told us that you were the most important man in Sun Valley, how you have an ostrich ranch with shifts of cosplay actors parading around. The Dom from your ranch was on our show, and she claimed that you are going around spreading a rumor that you had a $200.1 million settlement you're claiming I represented you on for your genital being infringed.
Well, it is true, Mr. Gerber. You never officially represented me on my genital infringement case. But I distinctly remember talking to you on the telephone in 1994. You gave such good legal advice. I handled the case on my own, and I got a $200.1 million settlement in 1994 dollars.
It's kind of strange, just never made the media.
Oh, it did, in the National Enquirer. And I quoted you as being my attorney.
This never happened.
Did so?
Did not.
Did so.
Rhemus, you're not even a real person. You're a character written into the scripts for these shows after the public's interest was piqued by my mention of you calling my office on that first show, and I think you heard about this, and that's why you are here now. So we're going to have to take a break, folks, and sort this out because I did not represent him. He seems to admit that, and we're going to find out more about his operation, which I'm sure involves many labor laws. I would encourage you to call my office for real legal advice at 877-525-0700. Once again, 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. When we come back, we're going to talk to the most important man in Sun Valley.
And it's the San Fernando Valley for me. I think that I'm...
This is John Greenhut, and if your teeth are stained from coffee, tea, or smoking, Power Swabs is the answer. In 5 minutes, you'll see 2 shades whiter teeth, and in 7 days, 6 shades. Even better, there's no messy strips or trays that you'll have to leave in your mouth for an hour. Just swab your teeth for 5 minutes, and you're done. To try Power Swabs, call 1-800-679-0969. Your bright white smile will have your friends talking about how great you look. Try it risk-free. 1-800-679-0969. That's 1-800-679-0969.
At the Home Depot, summer heat means it's time to add Vigoro colored mulch to your list and your cart. Right now, get 5 bags for just $10. Underneath it all, Vigoro lays down a layer of protection that helps retain soil moisture in shades of red, brown, or black. You can't control the heat. You can control the results. Vigoro colored mulch, 5 bags, $10. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. Color selection may vary by store. Limit 60 bags per customer.
Power Swabs is the answer. In 5 minutes, you'll see 2 shades whiter teeth, and in 7 days, 6 shades. Even better, there's no messy strips or trays that you'll have to leave in your mouth for an hour. Just swab your teeth for 5 minutes, and you're done. To try Power Swabs, call 1-800-679-0969. Your bright white smile will have your friends talking about how great you look. Try it risk-free. 1-800-679-0969. That's 1-800-679-0969.
At the Home Depot, summer heat means it's time to add Vigoro colored mulch to your list and your cart. Right now, get 5 bags for just $10. Underneath it all, Vigoro lays down a layer of protection that helps retain soil moisture in shades of red, brown, or black. You can't control the heat. You can control the results. Vigoro colored mulch, 5 bags, $10. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. Color selection may vary by store. Limit 60 bags per customer.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a consistent force in fighting for the rights of California employees. They've represented thousands of employees in cases in which they've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, discriminated against at work, or owed wages individually or as a group such as a class action. The Employment Lawyers Group has maintained a high win rate and a serious record before the California courts. Please call 877-525-0700 for an experienced work lawyer. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, research the firm at worklawyerca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. If you hire the Employment Lawyers Group, your legal problem becomes theirs to solve.
Take this job and shove it. I ain't working.
Talk Radio 790 KABC. This is Karl Gerber, workplace lawyer. I'm Karl Gerber, a real employment lawyer in California. Before we broke, we had a very important guest because he is the most important man in Sun Valley, California. He's been referenced on several of our shows so far. He called my office in 1994. I just accused him of being a fictional character. We're going to find out about his work operation, give him what's called an employment law checkup. So I was just saying, you're a fictional character, Mr. Rhemus Helms.
Mr. Gerber, are you saying my genitals enhanced? I can take my pants off right now and show you what.
I wanted you to come on the show to clear the air on a few facts. Nothing about the male member. More for you to admit that I didn't get you $200.1 million because I don't want to be accused of false advertising. I also wanted to give you that employment law checkup. I was concerned about some of your working conditions on your ranch. However, the male members talk, all that, I'm starting to wonder if this appearance was such a good idea.
Mr. Gerber, didn't you want to beat me?
As a matter of fact, no. Not now, and not in 1994 either.
Oh, sad. It's so sad. Huh?
We need to talk about your operation.
Mr. Gerber, I've not had a behind lift or a back part enhancement, let alone a front part enhancement. The only operation I've had is for cataracts. Actually, I had a prostate issue a few years back. Heaven to Betsy, now all is fine in my pants.
Okay, I would met your ranch. I'm kind of unclear whether you're a real business or the whole thing with the ranch is just sort of for your amusement. But it doesn't matter if the business is for your amusement. If you have employees, you have to abide by the labor laws.
The only thing I use is silicono synthetica once a week.
Yeah, we've heard about that before on this show, but just because people work in your home environment, again, that doesn't mean the California labor laws don't apply to their working conditions.
Well, I do bring in $34,000 a year off the ostrich eggs.
I'm glad to hear that. A lot of money. How many employees do you have?
The French maids are W-2 employees, 6, I guess. The butler who wears a werewolf mask, the driver for the truck, and then
just think about how many employees you have, give it some thought, and add it up.
I wanted to ask you if it's okay to classify the Easter Bunny as an independent contractor.
We heard about the Easter Bunny on the last episode. He has cosplay actors. He likes to see friendly ones at night, which I guess the Easter Bunny is supposed to be. But I don't see why not. Just classify the Easter Bunny as an independent contractor. I can't imagine somebody with a getup like that would be getting much direction from you where they'd have to be an employee.
Actually, Santa is more unexpected. You never know when he might come.
Seriously, unless these actors just sort of show up randomly and do their own artistic acts with not with your costumes, but with their own, and they're not working for anyone else, well, let me kind of rephrase this. If they show up with their own costumes and they're working for other people doing the same thing, it's very artistic, I feel that they might not be your employees.
Mr. Gerber, whatever legal advice you give me, I will take. I never would have gotten into the mess with Mistress Luboff Dominatrix almost being sued by the robot for sexual harassment. But for her settling so fast. If you were there to give me legal advice like you did.
I've never met you before.
Mr. Gerber, I have been following you for longer than you know. I knew you back when you were the sysop of the Leemore Connection. You were the original blogger. And then the Speakeasy communication system in the early 80s, when you changed your identity to start anew as a sysop of a new system. And then a multi-user system.
Actually, the two sysops were different people. The card shark was Anthony Green, and I was Fast Eddie, totally different voices.
All those pedophiles who harassed your bulletin board systems back in the early days of the online modem world. They gave the adult film business a bad name. I was just getting into directing back then. Time and time again, I used my crew to nap the child molesters who preyed on those teen-run bulletin boards.
Yeah, you certainly have good morals for someone who was so famous as an actor and then a director in the adult film business. And I'm glad you were looking out for us back then, but we did handle our own, and you can read about that in Modem Stud.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
Have you considered abandoning the cosplay actors on your ranch because they're creating a sexually hostile work environment given the roles they play, like the dom who isn't really supposed to be a supervisor but is acting like a supervisor because that's her costume role?
No, that was just Mistress Dominatrix. Everybody else works so well together. The red-haired McDonald's girl serves muscle milk to six-pack Peter. He carries the heavy loads of ostrich eggs. You know, some of the eggs are quite large.
It's like a heavy egg. Yeah, Mistress Dominatrix, that a.k.a. Cindy D character, she claimed you had wild parties on the ranch.
Oh, God. At my age. Such a figment of her imagination.
I've had quite a few cases where workplace events lead to sexual harassment, like in a petroleum case.
We use a lot of petroleum on the ranch, you know.
Please, let's not get started with that. This was an oil industry case, and the harasser claimed he followed my client home because she was drunk, and he wanted to make sure she arrived home safely. I was kind of wondering if he was more concerned that he might not arrive home safely if he was shadowing a drunk driver. It wasn't a very good thing for a harasser to claim. Multiple inappropriate things seem to happen at these Christmas parties. Sometimes it creates sexual harassment. We had another case where there was a party where the defendant claimed everyone was drunk, and that's why the managers pinned my client up against a wall in a hallway and molested her. So I think you have to be careful about those wild parties, Rhemus.
Mr. Gerber, after 26 years in the adult entertainment business, the last thing I ever want to see is non-consensual sex. If anybody ever did that in my presence, six-pack Peter would beat their Peter.
Again, we're here for an employment law checkup with Rhemus Helms, who claims that he was in the adult business, but he has a ranch now. And one of the things here that Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show, wants to tell Rhemus Helms is that acts of violence against an employee, not really a good idea. There may be a difficult issue that arises if employees are fighting, but it might be better to call security or the police. Getting a bunch of guys to jump into the fight is definitely not a good idea.
I was never a fan of SM videos. Only produced one. It was kitty play.
I'll ignore that. Not ask any questions about it. So, Rhemus, how long are the shifts for your actors? I know there's shifts at your ranch, and these cosplay actors that just parade around for no particular reason are there.
It's usually 8. But if somebody has a doctor's note limiting their activities, say, for example, Pumpkinhead must take off his pumpkin head for 10 minutes every hour to avoid neck strain. So I cut his hours back to 3 in a day, hoping to get a little less dried-up pumpkin man. Notwithstanding the fact he's super scary like that.
Yikes. This does sort of sound like age discrimination and an adverse employment action for a work injury. Like retaliating against an employee due to a work injury, that's a violation of California Labor Code Section 132A. That leads to enhanced penalties under the workers' compensation system. You never told me how many employees you have. The reason why I asked is I'd like to know if maybe Pumpkinhead could be eligible for California Family Rights intermittent leave because he has a serious medical condition, or maybe it's a disability under the law for which there should be reasonable accommodations if his neck is been going on as a problem this long.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm glad you told me this. I never wanted to hurt the old fellow. Am I still in trouble? We have postings about our workers' compensation policy in the Candyland room.
Candyland room. Most of the workplace laws do not require intent, Rhemus. So if the actions are done intentionally, there might be some additional sorts of penalties like malice, oppression, and fraud that leads to punitive damages, which can enhance damages by nine times.
Gee, God, sounds terrible. Pumpkinhead has a few herniated discs in his neck. Doesn't have a full range of motion. You have to understand he's been working as Pumpkin Man since before I ever worked as long... Ooh, I can't say the middle word on the radio. Since I started working as long... Silver.
Okay, so we're still talking to Rhemus Helms on Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer, on Talk Radio 790 KABC. This is a real lawyer, that being me. If you feel like you'd like to talk to me about an employment problem confidentially, because some of them can be a little personal as we're learning, call my office at 877-525-0700. Once again, 877-525-0700, 877-525-0700. Us real workplace lawyers are open even if it's Memorial Day.
I think that I'm safe in stating
right now, Norm's famous sirloin steak and eggs are just $9.99. Flame-grilled sirloin steak, farm-fresh eggs, golden hash browns, and scratch-made buttermilk cupcakes. Just $9.99 for a limited time at Norm's Restaurants.
Saturday mornings at 7, backed by popular demand. It's the Real Estate Zone with Danny Batsalkin. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, learn the strategies and secrets from the pros. That's Saturdays at 7, right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
If you're retired or retiring soon and need to make your money last, you cannot afford to miss this free Money Matters Retirement Seminar in Orange, Thursday, June 7th, or Chatsworth, Saturday, June 9th. Reserve at moneymatters.net. That's moneymatters.net, or call 800-994-0302.
Looking for a car service who provides the ultimate experience for your event or meeting? Then book with the best. Jackson Limousine has been servicing Los Angeles for 35 years and can handle all your needs. Go to jacksonlimo.com. jacksonlimo.com.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
At the Home Depot, summer heat means it's time to add Vigoro colored mulch to your list and your cart. Right now, get 5 bags for just $10. Underneath it all, Vigoro lays down a layer of protection that helps retain soil moisture in shades of red, brown, or black. You can't control the heat. You can control the results. Vigoro colored mulch, 5 bags, $10. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. Color selection may vary by store. Limit 60 bags per customer.
790 KABC News Update. I'm Steve Cummings. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan has declared a state of emergency in a community west of Baltimore hit by flash floods. Hogan says on Facebook that he is heading to Ellicott City, located about 13 miles west of Baltimore, after today's flash flooding from recent heavy rains. Authorities have no immediate reports of any injuries or fatalities, though information is still preliminary. Will Power has furnished Team Penske with its 17th Indianapolis 500 victory. The 37-year-old Australian took the lead when Oriol Servia and Jack Harvey had to pit stop for fuel with 4 laps to go. Power then held off pole winner Ed Carpenter to wrap up the win. It was Power's second straight victory and comes on the heels of his road course win at Indy earlier this month. KABC SoCal weather, low clouds and fog near the coast spreading inland tonight with lows in the mid to upper 50s. Memorial Day, sunny with highs from the mid-60s to around 70 at the beaches to the mid to upper 70s inland. More news coming up and continuous coverage on KABC.com. I'm Steve Cumming, Talk Radio 790, KABC News.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a results-oriented law firm whose goal is to get the client what they deserve. They've represented thousands of California employees who've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, subjected to employment discrimination, or were owed wages on an individualized or group basis, such as a class action. They have a high rate of success. There are few situations involving employment law that they have not confronted. At the forefront of employee rights, they're often the first employee law firm to confront a new legal issue. For an experienced employment lawyer, call 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, read more about the firm at employeelawca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. Make your work problem theirs to solve.
Take this job and
Talk Radio 790 KABC, Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show. I am Karl Gerber, a real and employment lawyer. We had a caller call in from the 949 area code. We're going to have to call you back a little bit later in the show because I'm very concerned about giving Mr. Rhemus Helms a good employment law checkup. I've heard a lot of practices at his bizarre ranch with cosplay actors that don't sound like good workplace practices. I want to try to give him some meaningful advice on the show so he doesn't have any more lawsuits. And before we broke, he was telling us he had someone working there with a pumpkin head, and the guy has some range of motion problems and all the stuff from wearing the pumpkin head. And I was concerned that this could be, medical conditions that substantially limit this guy's life if he's got a neck problem that goes back to the 80s from wearing a pumpkin costume headpiece, and that could be considered a disability under California law because it's something that's been going on long enough. There's a medical history of it, and there's a history of a disability, and you have to accommodate employees, obviously, if they do have a disability, and not expose the employee to adverse actions such as shift cuts aimed at getting the employee to quit, which is what I thought I heard before we broke. So, again, Rhemus, why don't you continue on?
Expose the employee? Hold on, cowboy. I only show my, if people want to see it. And most people do. It's so famous. But you're right. I started my film career in 1976 in the San Fernando Valley. I wanted to make the San Fernando Valley my home. I make the San Fernando Valley my home.
It's a good movie from 1944, and good song I think we're hearing near the end of our segments. So I know you're in Sun Valley and all that, and you've been to Valley since 1976. Did you ever go ice skating at the Laurel Plaza?
You betcha. Me, John H., Linda. Later when Nina H. was a young woman. Everybody in the business, mustaches and all.
The rink had a sort of derelict demeanor to it by the late 70s. I remember seeing a 9-year-old who lived on my block smoking a cigarette there.
The one thing I really couldn't tolerate by the late 70s were cigarettes. I smoked a few cloves in the early 80s. But I even fired somebody for smoking in my Chatsworth distribution warehouse a couple of years before I called you.
You never called me. At least you didn't. Someone else did. But you're a character on a radio show. Just kind of want to remind you that. And I'm really glad to hear that you did fire someone for violating the California Labor Code. It has been illegal my whole career for somebody to smoke inside the workplace. I remember a case around the time you allegedly called me, and it was a woman, and she was fired. We were going to take the case for complaining about someone smoking in the workplace. So nowadays, kind of going to the other end of the spectrum, I've gotten calls from people that say they were fired for smoking in the workplace, and I've got to tell them you can be fired for smoking in the workplace. And now I'm wondering if you could be fired for consuming strong edibles. Certainly smoking marijuana in the workplace could get you fired. And the other thing I should say when we're talking about marijuana is it's not illegal to fire somebody in California because they have a medical marijuana card.
What about nail polish?
What about it?
The Nyote Mori. Nyote Mori. It means female body arrangement. Pink flowers, fans for sushi arrangements. Such a beautiful religious practice.
We've heard about this practice on some of the shows here where women who are scantily dressed have sushi eaten off them. This is not a religious practice as far as I know. If it was, there would be questions if it was a religious organization that did this, because religious organizations are only liable under the federal discrimination laws, not the state ones. But I'm also wondering if this practice could be gender discrimination, because to my knowledge I have not heard of a man operating as the buffet table for a sushi restaurant. And yeah, right. If you could see it now, I'm going to be the first one where I got a call from one of these Naotomori models that wants to sue for gender discrimination, calling my office at that 877-525-0700, 877-525-0700, 877-525-0700. Remember the last episode where the robot kept looping 0700, 0700? That was terrible.
I want to make sure I'm paying my actors the right overtime rate.
Good. Do you pay them time and a half after an 8-hour shift?
Mr. Gerber, Santa is a very long-term employee. he gets $300 per shift. How do I figure his overtime rate?
So what you have to do is you have to divide the daily rate of $300 by his 8-hour shift, presuming he got his uninterrupted 30-minute meal break, and he doesn't have any additional pay. So right there, it's $37.50 an hour, which would be $56.25 an hour double time, but I do want you to think about whether he had any additional pay besides the hourly rate for figuring his overtime.
During the holiday season, he works every day from sundown on Thanksgiving until right before New Year's. We eat ostrich meat and tofurkey on Thanksgiving, by the way.
That's great. There's some rules about double time coming in on the 7th consecutive day if the employee has not had a day off. If that happens, which it sounds like it's happening with Santa during the holiday season there, the first 8 hours on the 7th day are going to be paid at overtime. After 8 hours is double time rate. And remember, Rhemus, for your employees, if they're working more than 40 hours in a work week, they're not normal household employees. That may be different, but 40 hours a week, you start getting overtime. And if you work more than 8 hours in a day, that's overtime. So I'm assuming that in the holiday season, Santa is probably going to hit overtime by the 6th day in his work week because he's had a bunch of 8-hour shifts. And I'm really impressed, Rhemus. I'm glad you're taking notes on what I'm telling you.
I'm glad to see you are taking notes on this, too. I've always trusted your judgment, Mr. Gerber.
Thank you, Rhemus.
Santa can earn extra pay.
How would that be?
I give tips to the McDonald's girl, the milkmaid, the teenage vampire, even Mr. Stominatrix for when they sit on his lap during Christmas.
Remember, this is Talk Radio 790 KABC. This is the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. This is a fascinating enactment intended to teach you the ins and outs of California labor law. And we're talking to Rhemus Helms, who has a COSPLAY ranch where he has many employees. And I want to ask him if these women who sit on Santa's lap, I presume these are women, and I presume they're not real minors, and I presume they're not forced to sit on his lap.
Oh, it's wonderful. They get so much enjoyment out of sitting on Santa's lap during Christmas.
You mentioned tips a minute ago, so how much are these tips?
I give the girls $50 each time they request to sit on Santa's lap and make a wish. And Santa knows this. When he wanted to get
all forms of compensation, piece rate pay, all of that should be factored into Santa's overtime. So those tips get factored into his hourly rate to figure out what his overtime rate is. And again, actors who are having a lot of artistic freedom and independent discretion doing their art, I'm not sure that those are going to be non-exempt employees that you have to be paying overtime to.
I read that if somebody does non-exempt functions, stuff they don't have independent discretion on, like, how to direct a non-traditional boy-girl scene in a rabbit hole, more than 50% of the time you have to treat them like an hourly employee.
Well, you are correct about these rules about 50% or more. It's actually 51% or 50.1%. But if that slight amount more is spent doing something that does not require independent discretion, then the person is what's called non-exempt. If more than half the time they're doing artistic work and very maybe difficult scenes they're directing, certainly that would be somebody that is exempt who doesn't need to be paid overtime.
Mr. Gerber, it isn't like all my cosplays do is parade around on the ranch like you think. The McDonald's girl must serve colored macaroons at all times, polish the silver charging trays twice a shift, change the silver lace doilies every hour, order them served shakes every hour, French fries at every odd hour. And
I get the point. How long does all this take?
I never really calculated it.
So what you're going to have to do, Rhemus, to figure this out is do a time analysis of the McDonald's girl, who I guess is a cosplay actor, to find out if her exempt functions, how long they take, and how long her non-exempt functions take.
Oh, Mr. Gerber, Are you suggesting the werewolf butler stand there with a timer and timer handing out bubblegum machine trinkets before each actor takes a 10-minute rest break? There's so many labor laws you have to follow just running a simple ostrich farm with 36 cosplay actors, not including French maids, the truck driver, and my hairstylist, and a bunch other. Earlier this week, I was consulting with my clairvoyant. She told me there was going to be a big change in employment arbitration. The next afternoon, when I was listening to the news on KABC around the start of the swing shift on the ranch, they said the U.S. Supreme Court had a case about employment arbitration. Goodness. You didn't hear about this, did you?
Are you serious?
Are you making fun of me because I'm using a clairvoyant?
No. Do you really think there'd be the latest case coming out by the California or the United States Supreme Court on employment law and I wouldn't have read it?
Does Epic Systems v. Ernst & Young, U.S. Supreme Court case number 16-285, and the companion case is 16-300-307, heard on a writ of certiorari. Certiorari, if you wish. Change anything?
No, but why do you have these case numbers in your head? Even before Epic Systems, it was assumed that employees who signed binding arbitration agreements with their employers could not be part of class actions. The issue is whether the right to engage in concerted action like unionizing is ruined by a rule that you're going to go arbitrate. So when we come back, we're going to cover this United States Supreme Court case that made the news this week about employment arbitration on the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm a real attorney, Karl Gerber, speaking to Rhemus Helms, who operates a ranch with cosplay actors.
She will be waiting when my lonely journey is done.
A Wendy's Frosty is something special, and for a limited time, a Frosty is just 50 cents. An American classic for a classic price. It's not quite a milkshake, not quite an ice cream cone. It's definitely chocolate or vanilla. That choice is on you. Use a spoon or a French fry. Anything goes. A Frosty makes summer special. Yep, there's nothing quite like a Frosty, and there's nothing quite like this deal. A Frosty for 50 cents. Get yours before this deal melts away.
Small Frosty only at participating Wendy's for a limited time. Price and participation may vary in Alaska and Hawaii.
Please give it up for the termite.
So I was shedding my exoskeleton the other day. Realized the blinds were open. That's embarrassing. Anyone here tonight from the Calotermidae species? No? No? That's too bad. Because all of my next jokes are drywood related.
Termites aren't funny. $5 billion of damage each year is nothing to laugh at. Visit Orkin.com to schedule an inspection and get 15% off.
Everyone talks about decluttering, but no one really does it because it's a lot of work. There are a million things you'd rather do than packing and schlepping your things into a storage space, especially when it's heating up outside. So don't. Make Space is a whole new way to store your things. And get this, it's even less than the price of traditional self-storage. Their team of professional movers come to you with free packing supplies. Pack up whatever you want and move it into safe and secure storage. You don't even have to remember what you packed because you can see photos of what you stored through their personalized app and then request items back with a push of a button. Thousands of people are using MakeSpace in Los Angeles, and so can you. Book before May 30th, and MakeSpace will give you $100 off your first month at makespace.com/save. That's makespace.com/save to get $100 off your first month. Makespace.com/save.
The Employment Lawyers Group is a results-driven law firm whose goal is to get the right result for the client. They have represented employees with a high rate of success since 1993 throughout the state of California. They're only paid and if they are able to collect money from the employer, so there's not any upfront fees or costs in order to hire them. They have represented thousands of employees who've been terminated from their jobs, sexually harassed, subjected to employment discrimination, or are owed wages in an individualized or group basis such as a class action. Call 877-525 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. They have operators standing by. They can also be reached at employeelawca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. Hire them and make your workplace problem theirs to solve.
Take this job and shove it. I ain't working it.
Talk Radio 790 KABC. You're listening to Karl Gerber, workplace lawyer, heard on this station. And Sunday nights, 7 to 8 o'clock, we've been talking about an employment law checkup for a business owner. This is Memorial Day weekend. I did want to say that if you are a member of the armed services and you're fired from your job for having to take leave for the military, that can be wrongful termination. And in terms of the cases that I feel employers are the most nasty about and least understanding, it's probably leave for people in the military and religion. With that said, we're going to talk to Rhemus Helms more, who's sort of a fictional character owning a business, getting an employment law checkup. He raised the issue with me before we broke about a new case called Epic Systems from the United States Supreme Court. He seems to know all the companion case numbers. Kind of weird. And the case has decided that if you sign an arbitration agreement with your employer, which 54% of all employees do in this country, they cannot have a class action. And this also has implications for unions, because the thought had been that it was concerted activity that you cannot be blocked, and you can't block a class action on concerted activity. So getting back to this discussion with Rhemus Helms here, I guess you should continue, Rhemus.
Well, I always like the idea of having my employees bring a class in action against me.
Why? You want to be sued?
Oh, that's what it means? Just thought it sounded good.
Yeah, class action is when a bunch of employees get together and bring a lawsuit, or one person brings it on behalf of 100,000. So on the last show, you can hear it on YouTube or workplacelawyer.org. I was told that your robot told me humanoid takes care of the human resource issues on your ranch for the non-human, dead, undead, unborn, slave master, and superheroes. Is this guy humanoid trained on human resources?
Hell no.
I have serious concerns about your ability to enforce all the California and federal labor laws if humanoid is not even trained in human relations.
We have arbitration.
You have cosplay actors who are dressed as arbitrators?
No. The Scribblers made some beautiful arbitration agreements for the workers on the ranch.
Can I see your arbitration agreement? Oh, thank you, Rhemus. This is a really impressive document. Really nice penmanship here, nice calligraphy. And my grandfather was a famous calligrapher, and he used to put little symbols of, like, animals and things in the letters, but the symbols here, I can't say what that symbol is on the air. That's really disgusting. Is that what you claim was infringed?
It's not to scale.
Oh, I wouldn't expect it to be, but notwithstanding that, the scroll is a couple feet long.
Actually, that's the branding we put on the ostriches. It's the trademark of the ranch.
Oh, of course. That makes a lot of sense. Can we talk about the terms of your arbitration agreement? It specifies only a retired Supreme Court justice can arbitrate your employment disputes.
There's something wrong with that.
Well, besides the fact there are not too many retired Supreme Court justices around, the arbitration agreement requires they only wear a Minotaur headpiece when they're arbitrating.
How else is the arbitrator supposed to keep order?
With your employees, you do have a point.
So you agree?
I'm just not sure a retired Supreme Court justice would be interested in wearing a Minotaur headpiece to arbitrate a dispute between cosplay actors.
Now remember, Mr. Gerber, my hairstylist, too, and the driver, and...
Yeah, even a retired Supreme Court justice who might arbitrate with a Minotaur thing, maybe you're going to find one, I don't know, but there's a clause in here that the arbitrator has to be older than you. That is yet another hurdle in finding someone to actually arbitrate your dispute.
I just wanted somebody I'd respect.
I suppose the Minotaur headpiece would add a lot of credibility to the arbitrator?
Well, certainly.
Don't you think that an active sitting judge in a public courtroom who hears cases every day and has a research attorney to figure out the law, or maybe a jury if your peers, well, that might be a problem in your case, don't you think those folks would be better than a retired Supreme Court justice older than you wearing a Minotaur's headpiece during an arbitration?
No, I wouldn't expect the arbitrator to be up to date on the law. That's why the agreement has a choice of law provision. The arbitrator is only supposed to enforce the laws that existed in 1976 when I made the San Fernando Valley my home.
Courts are not supposed to be enforcing absurd terms. There are quite a few in this arbitration agreement you expect your employees to abide by.
I thought every deference would be given to arbitrating.
Audience, there is a way to get rid of employment arbitration. You know, it's the Congress and the Senate. They could outlaw it because it's all based on a 1925 idea about commercial parties arbitrating. Doesn't work very well in employment law to have one person who is usually a certain type of person because they're a retired judge or a lawyer that is done with their career. Lots of men, too, deciding a case.
Mr. Gerber, I heard arbitration might be fun because it's arbitrary, and the arbitrator doesn't have to enforce the law.
You're right. The arbitrator is not bound by the law, and this is real. This is not a joke. I'm not sure it's supposed to be arbitrary, though.
I just sort of like the idea of one really old guy with a Minotaur headpiece making a decision. It might just be wrong because there's no way of appealing the decision. Hell, I could have to pay millions of dollars because the arbitrator got it all wrong. Or maybe his Viagra didn't work the night before. Or he thinks it would be funny to rip me a new one. Or already have it ripped for me.
It's a really bad business decision here to have this arbitration you're considering for your employees.
Should I get the Stompers to do their thing on the arbitration parchments?
Forthwith.
Could I come back on this show for more legal advice?
Actually, I've found their conversation is that employees commonly sign that they're going to go arbitrate their disputes, having absolutely no idea what that means, thinking it might be fun or arbitrary. And now the United States Supreme Court says that if you sign one of these things that you don't know what it is when you sign a whole bunch of papers when you first start your job, that you can't have a class action. So if you're owed $70 or $700 in unpaid commission, you're just going to have to bring a whole lawsuit for that instead of all the employees that are owed the overtime because the employer simply didn't pay it. So that decision is Epic Systems, and that happened this week. We've also learned that there's something called exempt and non-exempt in California labor law, and those non-exempt employees are the ones that need to have overtime paid to them, get meal and rest breaks, things like that. And independent discretion in doing the job more than half the time is going to determine if you are exempt or non-exempt. And if you have a very artistic job, like maybe you're really enacting the cosplay stuff, but you're not serving stuff on doilies and whatever it was that Rhemus Helms was telling us about, then you might be exempt because artists are exempt, like many licensed professionals like lawyers and doctors. We've also learned that a medical condition like Pumpkinhead's neck problem can trigger many different workplace rights. It can be a work injury. It can be something that the FMLA, Family Medical Leave, or the California Family Rights Act, which does the same thing, California covers as a serious medical condition, but that law requires 50 employees in a 75-mile radius. Rhemus only had something under 50, but if there's a long history of that medical condition going on, it becomes a history of the disability, and employers must reasonably accommodate that, provide longer leaves, and it's not a real good idea to fire someone because of a work injury or because they have some limiting medical thing. The employer is supposed to work with the employees to do it. We have a lot of employment laws, and we've learned that you can be fired for smoking in the workplace, but if you complain someone else is smoking in the workplace, that's a violation of the labor code, and that can lead to wrongful termination. We've also learned even former adult sex stars like Rhemus Helms, allegedly, they no longer smoke, so maybe it's just not a great idea. We've also learned a little bit about religious organizations and how they have to be sued under federal labor laws, and again we've learned that eating sushi off a scantily scantily dressed woman in the workplace is not a really good idea. So, this has been an exciting episode of Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer, where we spoke to Rhemus Helms. I would encourage you to look at some of our other episodes of this show on workplacelawyer.org, because you're going to hear continuing characters on this show, and you're going to meet them, and it's for you to decide what you like and what you don't like about this show. You can call me and complain about it at 877-525-0700. Better yet, call me if you have an employment problem, 877-525-0700. Once again, 877-525-0700. Remember, any lawyer that can come up with these scripts every week must be able to tell a good story to a jury. So enjoy your day off tomorrow if you have it. If not, congratulations for being a wanted employee in the workforce, and have a great week at work. This has been the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, heard every Sunday from 7 to 8 on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
This show furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyer Group. 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 Karl Gerber